Hey everyone, welcome to the second ever episode of the Spiral Tap podcast. I'm Dale,
I'm Adrian.
and we are here again. We were supposed to be joined by our third party member today, but Dr. Darren has been held up at work, so he will be joining us probably at our next episode. So
Yep.
here's a shout out to him.
Yeah, Darren.
Yeah,
join us next time.
Join us. Okay, before we get on to our topic of the day, okay, Adrian, what have you been playing?
What else will I be playing? This is the keyword here. So
Still Monster Hunter.
Still Monster Hunter, the Devil Joe, the new Monster Edition that Capcom has added to their top selling Monster Hunter title thus far. It just came out on the 22nd, which is 2-3 days ago. Then just today, when I went online to check, they stealth updated a tempered Devil Joe event. So tempered monsters are actually the more powerful versions of a normal monster in Monster Hunter World. So people, ever since the release, maybe the forums or Reddit and stuff like that have been going crazy, saying that Devil Joe wasn't hard enough. So Capcom here are pleased, and now they decide to punish us with a monster that can literally one-shot us, even if we have more than 400 for our defense value.
That sounds brutal.
Wow, it's Monster Hunter.
That still sounds brutal. I mean, for myself, I'll be going to Japan in a couple of days, so not really been aching to play anything, but I have got Ni no Kuni 2 lined up on my shopping cart. That's going to be as soon as I get back. In the meantime, I've actually loaded up Grand Kingdom to play on my Vita when I bring it up to Japan with me.
Grand Kingdom, Atlas title.
It's kind of like a tactical RPG, but slightly simpler. It was on free PS Plus games last month.
Yes.
I've actually dabbled in it just a little bit, but I didn't actually get it for the Vita, but it was actually available for the Vita last month, so that's quite good for me. Other than that, because I don't have access to my Switch at the moment, so I can't play Celeste. I can't play
Celeste, yeah.
I can't play Dandara.
Or any of the other indie titles that is coming up.
I'm just lining up Grand Kingdom to play on my trip to Japan. On to our topic of the show. I would say that our last show was a bit more critical. So for this week, we are actually going a little bit more casual. We are actually going to be talking about gaming and us in particular.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the viewers will probably want to know who are we, what do we play, our taste, and why to give a better context for our future shows or even our previous
so
show.
what defines our gaming lives, what drove us to play the games that we played, and what influenced us in gaming. That's also the type that, what kind of games can't we really play.
Yes.
Yeah, so to our main topic of the show, I would say that I was a Sega kid growing up. What about you?
I grew up kind of as a Sega kid as well. The weirder version of it, I had a cousin who owned a Sega Saturn back in 1995 to 96 when it first came out. So my early exposure to console gaming were Virtua Fighter, Virtua Cop, pretty
Daytona
much.
USA.
Yeah, Daytona USA of the like. Those early first day launch titles on the Sega Saturn.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, for me, it's one generation back though. I mean, I'm slightly more old school than you if that's the case. I mean, for me, it was like Streets of Rage, Shining Force on the Genesis, Thunder Force, Super Shinobi. Yeah, and
The good old 16-bit days.
Yeah, and I mean, I did get some Nintendo in when my neighbor actually got Super Nintendo. So we spent a lot of time with like Super Bomberman, Mario Kart. I borrowed his system to play Zelda and Final Fantasy, and I think that's also what influenced a lot of me. Yeah, but besides those systems, everybody had the Game Boy, right?
I didn't have a Game Boy.
What?
Yeah. So
You have like a Wonder Swan or something?
not really. Console gaming wasn't that. At least for myself, console gaming wasn't the main source of gaming. The early stages of my life.
Okay.
So PC gaming was more prevalent since I got access to a relatively decent PC early on, and had internet access quite early. We're starting with the 56K, and then I think our family was one of the few early adopters of broadband as well.
Yeah.
Towards the 100 Mbps or even lower. I can't remember what was the old broadband where you couldn't be interrupted WoW the 56k
So
era. but
basically,
you still-
whenever somebody called, you could actually pick up the phone and still play your games.
Yes, so yeah, that was a big thing then. When your friends calling you can actually interrupt your game playing. That was the era that we in. So during those times, I played quite a bit of. There were this old series of puzzle games. There was one based on Goosebumps. The other one, which I don't think a lot of people will know nowadays, is called Neverhood.
Oh,
It was a DreamWorks claymation puzzle game. Yeah, and that shit was brutally hard. For maybe like a 7-8-year-old kid, that shit wasn't meant to be played by us. It was
That's
just
fair.
far too hard. Those are the logic puzzle solving that you need to perform for some of those puzzles in the game.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
about Doom? Do you have any stories about playing Doom? 'Cause I sure had. I mean, we had to lock our doors and
Doom wasn't that bad. I mean, well, you got a bunch of blood flying over the place, and Doom used to be packaged in old graphic cards
Yeah,
during our
yeah,
time.
yeah.
So you
I
can get the
remember this.
Doom 95 or 94, I can't remember, quite
Ultimate-
easily.
Ultimate
Yeah,
Doom, right?
Ultimate Doom editions.
that's
Yeah, install those and just run around getting killed by demons most of the time rather than shooting them. So yeah, that's one. And then moving forward towards more deeper stuff in terms of PC gaming, your red alerts, your RTS.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so those were when PC gaming was popular during that time.
I'm sure you played some
Early 2000s.
StarCraft as well.
Yeah, definitely StarCraft, Warcraft 2, StarCraft and Brood War. Yeah, pretty much. And then the turning point happened when Final Fantasy VII was released on the PC.
Oh, I mean, you're a few years late for that.
Yes, I was few years late for the actual thing, so
Yeah.
I didn't had access to any PlayStation. A friend of mine had one, but they were playing. They didn't really play with him too much for console. So my early exposure wasn't that much of console gaming.
Yeah. Okay.
It's only after that then with Final Fantasy VII I realized that there's actually a whole other side of gaming.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, I'm actually on the other side. I'm actually more of a console gamer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I did mention about having a Super Nintendo. So after that, I actually progressed on to a PlayStation, and that was the basic JRPG machine for me when everybody was churning out RPGs, right?
The golden
So,
era.
Yeah.
The renaissance
Yeah.
for console gaming.
Yeah, for JRPG. I mean, it's like everybody wanted to play one. Like every magazine covered, they had tips, they had secrets. There's like, oh, if this party member died, what do you do? So on and so forth. I mean, there are games like Suikoden 2, Xenogears, Final Fantasy 7, as mentioned by Adrian, Final Fantasy Tactics, Breath of Fire.
Breath of Fire.
Yeah, WoW
Tactics
Arms.
Ogre.
Yeah, Tactics Ogre. Then, I mean, the first Persona came out on PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The first Shin Megami Tensei as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, then there are games with RPG elements because JRPGs were so in vogue back then. I mean, there are games like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, where before they were just simple platformers, they evolved into something more via the trends of the time itself. So like Symphony of the Night, you have like different
Yeah, you start having stats gains, you get having a level system in place, you have equipment systems. And
Yeah,
stuff.
and they also were, I mean, Symphony of the Night is just such a masterpiece in the sense that it borrowed so much from other genres.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were special inputs like fighting games,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and they didn't actually tell you what the inputs were, and without widespread usage of the internet, where you basically are like, oh yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I can just do it in this motion.
So what does my weapon have in terms
Yeah.
of movesets? Oh,
Yeah, what does this
type it in
do?
Google and you'll probably find it.
Yeah, you can't do that back then. You had to experiment with every piece of crap item that you pick up.
Mm-hmm.
Then you realize, okay, this is good. This is a piece of shit. I should trade this in. I should sell this.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, games actually needed. You actually needed effort to play games back then, which sounds tedious, but back then we had less
that
things
was
to do.
fun. That
We had
was
less
actually-
things. We had
yeah.
less things to do.
Yes.
We had.
That's one. Well, besides was a bunch of schoolwork,
Yeah.
so we technically have less distractions.
Oh, we had a
in a way.
lot more distraction in terms of games. I mean, at least
Yeah.
for myself.
Mhm.
Like, personally speaking, that's how I bonded with my best friend,
Mhm.
even to this day,
Mhm.
was back in primary school, as in when we were higher primary,
Mhm.
I would say primary 5 or primary 6, because I can't actually remember the release year for the game itself.
Mhm.
But the game is actually WWE SmackDown.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was one of the old wrestling games.
Yeah, so For myself, my house was actually located actually like right across the street from where our school was. So every day after school, a group of my friends would just come over to my place. We'll just put on WWE SmackDown. We'll just WWF SmackDown.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's still the still the pre-entertainment era.
Yeah, so we put on WWF SmackDown and we will just play for the entire afternoon. We would consider doing our homework, but then we'll forget about it because we were all in different classes. And that's the thing. I mean, that's how I got to be best friends with my best friend. Like, I've been at his wedding and everything has been, 20 years? All because of a game. All because of WWF SmackDown. Yeah. PlayStation more or less defined how I made friendships. How I had friendships.
It used to be the cool kids usually have consoles. Then, in a weird way, computers were much more easily accessible because most families would have one.
Yeah,
The
but
console kids are the cool kids then.
yeah, but back then our PCs couldn't do much. I mean, the coolest games that we had were like Diablo, StarCraft, but other than that,
There wasn't much beyond
there-
that.
there wasn't
You
much
have
after
your
that.
Myst, you have the oldest walking simulators available right now,
Yeah.
Myst series.
yeah. So back then, everybody just thought of a computer as a system where you did spreadsheets and
You do
Don't-
homework,
you do homework on.
project work mostly.
Yeah. So nobody really understood like what a PC, dedicated PC, was as a gaming device. So back then, at least for myself, it's always been a console. And I mean, you mentioned that you played more of PCs. I mean, there was a time for me as well that I
Yeah.
played more PCs, but that was only because of games like Counter-Strike.
That was the later eras.
Yeah, I mean that was like in 2001. I remember having my PSLEs, and what happened was instead of studying for the exam itself, what we did after the PSLE exam, before our next paper, is that we will go to LAN shop and we will just play Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
And everybody did that, at least for my group of
That
friends
was the
itself.
1.3 era, right? That was Counter-Strike 1.3 or even older.
Look, it's been like 20 years.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
it's old when
I remember. I
it's
think
not
it's
even Source.
yeah.
It wasn't even Source. It was the early versions.
Yeah,
it was
it's-
based on the Half-Life 1 systems.
Yeah, it's I think it's close to 20 years now. I really can't remember what kind of version it was. I just remember that everybody popped out $3.50 an hour for a LAN shop seat where the uncle would help us by throwing us shirts because we couldn't play in our uniform back then.
That was the thing back then. Changing, bring an extra shirt with you so that you can change it out, and then before going to the LAN shop to play,
Yeah,
maybe play for about 2-3 hours on anything.
yeah.
Your Counter Strikes, your StarCrafts, just having fun.
Yeah.
Those were our childhood. So,
I
but in terms of, for me, I'm still grateful to be able to get access to the PC that allows me to see the other side of gaming. So,
Yeah.
moving on from that, because that was the PS1 era. So I played Metal Gear Solid on the PC.
I played Metal Gear Solid on PS1. It was probably what helped establish further friendship with my best friend as well, because it was such a different game. It was so cinematic in a sense.
Yeah, you and the overall gameplay of stealth and
Yeah.
not getting caught. It wasn't that popular then.
Yeah, but it was something that was different. It played like a movie, so it didn't actually matter if only one of us was actually playing the game itself. The other one would happily sit and just
watch and just enjoy the show.
Yeah, and basically Metal Gear Solid was such a... Every game magazine that I had covered Metal Gear Solid, gave a walkthrough of Metal Gear Solid. I mean, back then we were... I think I'm still dumb, but I was dumber back then. I mean, it's like... It's such a difficult game to grasp when... In primary school.
When your overall age is less than
Metal Gear
maybe you just passed 10.
Yeah, but basically
11.
it wasn't a simple game by any
Yeah.
sense of the word itself. And it's Kojima, and Kojima does very interesting things, fourth wall breaking things with his games itself.
Yeah, Psycho Mantis.
Yeah, unplug and put it in the second controller port. Like,
Yeah.
who does that? And who does that, right?
Who messes with you through the physical space?
Yeah.
Only Kojima does that.
So,
At least from what I can see, That's the only one that I've seen thus far, and it's really one of the most iconic figures or iconic moments of 4-4 breaking.
Yeah, I mean that's enough for Metal Gear itself.
Mm-hmm.
You're mentioning that this was the PS1 era.
Yeah, so moving on.
Okay, so we going on to the PS2 era.
Yeah.
When did you get your PS2?
I got my PS2 sadly maybe a few years later, when after O levels. So
That's after 2004.
so after O levels, where most kids are able to take part-time jobs in between before they move on to their tertiary studies, that's when you start having a disposable income for you to spend shit on.
This is where I have to share another very personal story.
Mhm.
Okay, I was slightly luckier than Adrian. I got my PS4 very
PS2.
my PS2, sorry, my PS2. I got my PS2 very very early on, slightly a year after its launch.
Mm-hmm.
The story being that my best friend and I was so hyped about the PS2 being released that we both actually got jobs, part-time jobs at a fast food restaurant, so that we could afford
To buy a PS2.
to buy a PS2, to
Mhm.
afford to buy a PS2. So what happened is that, I mean, we basically hung out every day as well, but the aim was that both of us was to have one in the so what happened is that we drew lots. So we'll pool our money from our job
Mhm.
to buy one PS2 for
Mhm.
one person,
Mhm.
1 month,
Mm-hmm.
and the second month we'll do it for the other,
The other
person.
person
Yeah. So that's how the two of us bought
managed to get a PS2 for both of you
yeah,
back to back.
very very early on.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, Adrian has seen my PS2. It is
Yeah.
so old that it's so fat. It doesn't even have
the fat version PS2.
it doesn't even have an IR port,
Mhm.
which is probably makes it the first generation of it.
Yeah, that's the earliest one of the damn earliest versions of
Yeah,
it.
and it's been so. I mean, it's been serving me for so long. I've put so many hours into it simply because, well, it's secondary school. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, study.
Play games.
You study until 2 p.m. and then go home and play games. Pretty much.
Pretty much. I mean, I was in a club where we had access to projectors and televisions and
Mhm.
things like this. So basically, what happened was that I brought my PlayStation 2 to school and we plugged in. And there was a time that we did assembly.
Mhm.
And while everybody was having assembly, right, we were in the control room just playing Need for Speed. Like, somebody was looking up. I mean, I was in the room, so I couldn't tell, but one of my friends, basically, he was like, I looked up at the AV control room, I see a bright blue light, then basically I hear the tune, the opening tune for Need for Speed, and I'm like, God damn it, guys, close the door, will you? Come on. Yeah, it's like,
The cool kid effect. The one with the console is always the cool kids. You can always kind of get away with certain things in a way.
in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess during the PS2 era as well was when my journalism career more or less started, in a sense. I was part of publications team within
For the school.
Yeah, for the school itself. But as a side project, my friend actually started his own website. Everybody of our age had a friend
Mm-hmm.
that made their own websites. Or GeoCities
Yeah,
or
GeoCities,
or
Yahoo,
Angel Fire
yeah.
or things like this itself. So a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, basically he started up his own like website, and because as a side project, he wanted to do entertainment news. So he had different friends for him cover different subjects,
Mm-hmm.
and just nice I was the one that was covering.
Gaming.
I was covering gaming, so I would write reviews for him for certain games itself. Also
Mhm.
because I had a large cache of games available to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, other friends were doing like fashion, lifestyle, so on and so forth. Like,
your teens magazine.
yeah, so basically,
Typical
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, it was a side project that got born out of a school project,
Mhm.
but that's where a lot of us got. I mean, I that's where I got my foot in the door. At least for journalism. I mean, for writing, for
Mhm.
game reviews as well. But
As well.
I mean, the better way to put it is that it's where we got a lot of the ideas of what we wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
from those years itself.
Mhm.
Like, I'm pretty sure Adrian decided that he either wanted to play more games or wanted to make games when he was in secondary school itself.
Pretty
Like,
much. PS2. Well, interestingly, I got my PS2 at the end of my secondary school years after O levels. But my first actual console was an Xbox, an OG Xbox.
let me guess, it was given away as a free gift because of your internet plan.
It had some discounts because of my internet plan. It was a Singtel plan, if I recall correctly. So you get some discounts, and then it was about only a couple of months after it was actually official launched in Singapore.
Yes.
So everything tied up and happened to the opportunity came and I grabbed it together with the original first Halo Combat Evolved for the Xbox.
Yeah, you see, I'm a bit bitter about that because Bungie, they developed the first Halo game itself. Halo, interestingly, was actually announced for a Mac system, but Microsoft bought Bungie,
yes.
and it became an Xbox exclusive,
Yes.
which makes me slightly bitter.
Their previous Project Marathon and Oni were actually
Mac
available
only.
on
It's
Mac. So
more or less a Mac only release, to be
until
very honest.
later down the line, maybe a couple of years later before they were ported over to the Windows platform.
Xbox back then was pretty relevant in our market, only because it was either given away as a free gift or there was a big discount.
And because it's Microsoft, they are able to do proper launch programs in a region where normally other console makers will probably not give a shit.
Yeah, but I do remember distinctly, at least for myself or my group of friends, the people who were writing, we were all starting out to write for various publications, like interning for various publications. We all dismissed the Xbox as something of either a fad or basically a failure of a console itself. One of my friends was basically he was a mixed Japanese Chinese, and he had more relation to his Japanese side, and he basically said that told us that Xbox was a fad, not just a fad, as a failing fad in Japan. It kind of colored our perception of
how Xbox could be successful from your point of view.
Yes, I mean, it's not just that. From my point of view, is that anything that you give away when it's just launched feels wrong.
It feels fishy.
It feels fishy. It feels very, very dodgy in a sense that if your console is so good, shouldn't you be banking on it, like making you money instead of tying it up with a promotion to give it away itself?
Yeah, all the stuff.
I mean that more or less colored my perception of Xbox. We will probably get more into this topic sometime
it's
in
a
the
whole
future.
other big topic altogether.
Yeah,
Xbox itself, because
Your first console was an Xbox.
Yes, my first console was an Xbox, just because.
Just because.
Yeah, then afterwards I got a PS2, and that's where my eyes really open up. Because in Xbox you really don't get a lot of. You get some interesting Japanese developed games.
What were the marquee games for the Xbox itself? I kind of remember.
There was Halo.
There was Halo. There was Dead or Alive. There was Crimson Skies.
Yes.
There was Jade Cocoon.
Well, those are quite Western, except for Dead or Alive, which is done by Team Ninja, which is a Japanese company,
Yeah.
a Japanese development team. But the rest of it, most of its cornerstone games that defines Xbox as a console, were done by Western developers.
So based on that, you actually got influenced by Japanese gaming?
I see this. I get to experience the Western side, but within all these cracks, all this big stuff, there are always smaller cracks that appears that things fall through. So some of the smaller Japanese titles that I don't think a lot of people would know about. There was a series called Otogi,
Yeah.
Otogi 1, which also spawned a sequel, Otogi 2, done by From Software.
Yeah.
From Software, making games
Yeah, I mean,
for the Xbox.
I mean, back then they weren't known for the Souls games at
Yeah.
all. I mean,
But
back
you
then
can-
they were known for what, Armored Core? Back then.
They were known for Armored Core. So later on, during the almost ending years of Xbox, the original Xbox, that came a game from them as well called Metal Wolf Chaos. It's a weird amalgamation of Eastern and Western influences. You got an Eastern developer developing a game about the president of the United States responding to a terrorist attack by going into a Hulkbuster like mech, beating the shit out of everyone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was thinking more that you would be talking about things like Steel Battalion.
Steel Battalion, I saw the box once, wanted to get it, saw the price tag, forget about it.
I mean, if you're talking about Max, Steel Battalion for the Xbox definitely comes to mind.
Yeah, that was that shit. When I first known of Steel Battalion and I saw whatever they were offering, it was amazing. Then I got to know the price tag. Not so much.
Yeah, basically it costs more than like 6 or 7 Xboxes.
It costs like half for Xbox.
No, I think it costs a lot more
Oh,
than
yeah,
that.
it probably cost a lot more than, yes.
The controller itself was larger than most people's TVs at the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
If I had that money, then I would have picked it up, and it would have been one of the most amazing experience. We'll talk about that later.
that's
Yeah.
fine. Well, you
So-
were playing on Xbox. I was playing on PS2. I was playing a lot on PS2.
Then after I got my PS2, that's where I realized that I have been missing out quite a bit.
So what were you playing on your PS2?
So that was the golden age of. So if PS1 was the renaissance of RPGs, where the beginnings of it began, PS2 was the golden age. Just like the golden age of Discovery, this is the golden age of JRPGs. Looking at the entire library of PS2, the percentage of it that's covered by JRPGs is astonishing.
No, I mean, a couple off the top of my head are like Final Fantasy X. There's Suikoden 3,
Yes.
Xenosaga, 3
Yes,
games in
yeah.
total. If you're counting games that merged, I mean, they are more action RPG based. Then you have things like Kingdom Hearts. You have things like
Tales of series, the early Tales of
Ooh.
Symphonia. You have a lot. You have your Shin Megami Tensei series that
You
went
have-
on. You have a Digital Devil Saga series.
you have La Pucelle Tactics,
Oh, that's
which
a
is
lot.
well, not many people will know of
Yeah,
that.
you
but
have
it's
you have your Disgaea, you have your Phantom Brace, you have a Shadow Heart series, which I personally am a favorite fan of. That is really close to my heart. The series.
you have Dark Cloud.
Dark Cloud 1
Dark
and 2,
Chronicle.
Dark Chronicles. What else? There are a lot, but which we off the top of our heads we probably can't name all of them.
Yeah, I mean, we spent so much time back then playing so many games that a lot of them slip through our minds. There are obviously like touchstone and hallmark games, like I mentioned before, things like Kingdom Hearts, like Final Fantasy X. Then there are-
12, Final Fantasy 12, the best Final Fantasy ever thus far. Okay, maybe I'm the only one with the plebeian taste, so
6 is still the best Final Fantasy.
I can agree if I have played it before properly.
I'll get you a copy. I'll
Okay.
get you a copy in Japan.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll probably be able to play it then.
For PlayStation 2, if I remember correctly, the library for PlayStation 2 games was so large that it basically eclipsed every game library
In
put together.
thus
Uh,
then or thus far.
Yeah, up to that point in time.
Yes.
They were pushing out so many games, and the cycle for PlayStation 2 was so large that there were too many things to be, named. We mentioned-
It still currently has one of the largest library in
And-
a generation.
yeah, it's still probably the best-selling console of all time. The development of PlayStation 2 only ended in 2013.
It really has one of the longest lifespan in terms of all the consoles thus far.
Yeah. Playing on PlayStation 2 was something of... Well, like I mentioned, I played it in school. I played a lot out of school. When I went into the army, we brought our systems there to play as well. I remember playing I remember clearing Kingdom Hearts 2 in camp. I remember playing Yakuza,
Yakuza, the original Yakuza 1
the original
and 2,
Yakuza, in
which
camp.
came out pretty much close to the ending stages of the PlayStation 2 console. It was quite late.
It was quite late that most people either fell out of gaming at that point in time. They were too busy with jobs
Or life
or
in
school.
general.
or dating in general. Whereas people who are very bored like me would still be playing the PlayStation 2. Yeah, so it basically lasted till 2000. I played 7 years of PlayStation 2 at least.
Yeah, I played at least 4 to 5 years of it.
Yeah, it had such a long life cycle that it basically eclipsed everything that we've played so far. I mean, even now there are things like that I will go back to play every year on my PlayStation 2. Mainly because it plays PlayStation 1 games as well. So there are things like Suikoden, Suikoden 2, Dragon Quest 8, which I go back to play every year. But I'm thinking of retiring my system because it's actually now on 3DS.
Yes.
But yeah, PlayStation 2 being such a big part of our lives actually also meant that
it defines us in a
Uh,
way.
it shaped a lot of our likes and dislikes about gaming itself. So right now, I actually like playing a lot of open world games. There was a period of time where I was doing reviews, and the games that were offered to me to review were actually a lot of open world games. and that
But
stemmed
open
back.
world games didn't stem from RPGs
It-
initially. So
It didn't actually stem from RPGs, but what actually made me like open world games came from a title in the PlayStation 2 that I think everybody played back then, back in 2004 probably. It was GTA 3 and GTA Vice City. So
Ah.
basically, that actually shaped why I love open world games so much. What I'm playing now are basically like open world. I play a lot of open world games. I platinumed, for example, Assassin's Creed Origins. I did it in 2 weeks when I had reservice. Yeah, Adrian lent me the game, so I finished it. I returned back to him, and he's like, "Why? How? Never mind." Yeah.
I'll just keep quiet.
Yeah, so I crank.
Through more open world
Yeah, I
games.
go through more open world games than I think probably anybody that I know or within my social circle itself.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So like games that I enjoy right now are like, for example, like Assassin's Creed I've mentioned before. That's Red Dead Redemption. I completed that like 4 times I think. Then there are things like GTA.
Yeah,
GTA.
all the various GTA.
Yeah, GTA is always something that I hold on to because it shaped a lot of what I like and dislike about game design in general. When Rockstar pushed out LA Noire, I played that a lot as well because it was simply the other side of the coin of what GTA really is. You actually play as a policeman, a detective, instead of a sociopathic
Yeah.
criminal.
Yeah, criminal murderer. But it's also LA Noire was also one of the first few games, if I recall, that was set in the 1940s, 50s era. There are not a lot of games that were set in that era, and it was actually an interesting era to explore in. Nowadays you got your Mad Men and your other interesting TV shows that are based around that period.
Yeah.
So why not more games?
Yeah. Why not more games? Simply because I guess certain themes do not translate well. Certain attitudes of that era itself don't
Yes, that's for sure. Certain mentality that will prevalent during that time
Yeah,
will seem very.
It seems very out of place. It feels
Yeah.
very asinine in the current environment that we're in. But let's not get into that at the moment.
So back to open world games.
Yeah, one series that I especially want to shout out is basically the Yakuza series itself. As I mentioned, I played a lot of it when I was playing on the PS2. I played it when it went to the PS3. It took 4 years for them to translate Yakuza 5.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was a tiring ordeal, but it was well worth the wait itself. What makes open world games so special to me is that basically I enjoy the world, the way the world is built. It gives the game additional depth. It gives the game additional life. It feels like real life, but at a different point in time or different location itself. Like Yakuza is a very, very good example. It actually feels like you are in Tokyo itself. I mean, there are other locations that it goes to, like Osaka.
I can't remember the southern regions of Japan.
Yeah, there Okinawa
Yeah,
as
Okinawa,
well.
yeah,
as well.
correct.
It's more or less a faithful representation of how those neighborhoods look like, if not function as well.
The types of
Food that's available, the things that
the types of
people
shops there are, the layout of the town,
Yeah,
where
the-
you have a shopping district, and then your shopping machis, and then the certain residential areas that are crowded around it.
Yeah, those make the game even more special itself. Ubisoft gets a lot of flack for a lot of their games itself, but what they do very, very well is they make open world games very well.
They
For
they make the world feel living in a way.
Yeah, every game that is put out by Ubisoft that is made with an open world in mind, right? People always complain, oh, you do the same things. You climb a tower, you take out a tower, and basically you open up the map itself.
Yeah, go and kill the fort, kill things or collect things or do some random activity.
Yeah. If you look past all that, you will find that the people in the world itself is designed to be very much alive. They talk about certain subjects. They comment if you are like jumping around the wall. I did a review for Watch Dogs 2. I'll use that as a very shining example of how the location, the world itself is a selling point of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, for those who don't know, Watch Dogs 2 is actually set in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're playing on a PC, they have an absurd amount of options that you could do. So, for example, if you have been to San Francisco, you would know that there is almost always a fog that's running through the town. Yeah, and they recreated in such a way that if you're playing on a PC and if you're playing on very, very high specs, you have the option of turning the fog on, which is fantastic. That it feels real, it feels authentic, it actually feels like digital tourism in a sense. Even if you were playing without the fog, without all the extra bells and whistles, and bring anybody who has been to San Francisco or live in San Francisco or wants to go to San Francisco, you can bring them to any street and say, hey, that is actually there. Like Industrial Light and Magic, you can't legally be in a Ubisoft game. Yeah, but the studio is exactly where it should be. Like
there's a parody version of.
There's a parody version of it. Like there have been videos where certain game companies or game review companies, like for example, IGN did a take where they were like, this is where our offices are. I mean, obviously they can't show that this is an IGN office. They can't put IGN on their...
Yeah, they probably need to jump through too many hoops just to get all those licenses.
Yes. But basically, you could take a bike, drive down to the street in Watch Dogs, where the IGN office is, and say, hey, this is the IGN office, let me just take a photo. And there are actually lots of people who have actually done that. Say, I'm standing in front of the IGN office, they took a screenshot of the place, they posted it up, and you can actually see it in game. And it's such a interesting facet that your world is actually a selling point of the game itself. I mean, obviously, Adrian can tell me about there are certain
counterpoint.
I mean, there are certain drawbacks as to having such a like big living open world. But I mean, every exploration of a world that somebody has built, whether it be contemporary or whether it be magical or fictional itself, is something amazing. It's like, even let's say you're playing in an FPS version of an open world game.
Yes.
For example, the world itself has always been one of the selling points. Dishonored is another very good example where you have multiple paths. It actually encourages you to go out in the world to explore.
In terms of, so Dishonored I wouldn't categorize it as an open world game. It has a tighter structure to it in terms of world space.
It's more linear than how an open world game should be because it's a mission based structure and things like this. But in terms of what we qualify as an open world, you go out to explore. You have freedom of choice and movement and things like this. I mean, it's quite niche, but by my definitions, it can actually be classified as an open world game in a sort. I mean, there are obviously things that there are caveats to that term, but it can be construed as such.
So let me ask you a question. Would you prefer an open world game that is huge and wide and filled with empty spaces and things to do, pockets around, or would you rather have an open world game where the whole scope of the game is slightly tighter? Maybe instead of a 16km, a 16km world, it will be something much smaller, but you have that, or you have a lot of density and stuff within it.
For both of those, they have plus and minus points. I mean, if you're talking about how big the map is and how tight everything is, there are games that define how, like there are games that show how each of it would be actually showcased. Like for example, if there is it's very large, but there are portions that are empty, but there are portions that are very lively as well. Assassin's Creed Origins does it in such a way that it shows work. Because Assassin's Creed Origins takes place in the desert. Obviously, there are going to be portions where there are just nothing
to do.
Yeah, there are nothing to do.
That makes contextual sense. It
makes contextual sense of how the world works. Then there are places like Yakuza, to be very honest, is a semi-open world. It's on rails in a sense. Everything is packed very tight, and you know the map isn't very, very big because it just focuses on one district in Tokyo itself. In this case, it's actually a parody
of the Kabukicho.
Of Kabukicho itself. And the game takes place mostly in that region. So everything in that sense is that there are two different sides of the coin. If you do it, these are very, very good examples of how to do different versions of what you said very, very well. I mean, there are obviously games that have a lot of nothing and look like there are nothing to do as well. I mean, like, for example, I can bring up Mad Max, the game itself. The game is, mechanically speaking, very good. Everything feels as it's supposed to feel. Everything looks as though as it's supposed to look itself.
And driving around, it's like it's technically an open world driving game.
Yes.
Because your vehicle that you're in is actually the most defining part.
Yeah, but the problem with Mad Max is that there's a whole lot of nothing. And that actually is contextually how it's supposed to be. But the problem is that the whole lot of nothing doesn't look particularly good as well. Which is the counterpoint that you can bring into Assassin's Creed Origins. But Assassin's Creed Origins does it so well is that every landscape that you look at is visually striking and different. And I think that's how you do it well. Every portion of the map can be a landmark in and of itself. They can show different things. And Ubisoft, I will give them credit again in that they can pack the emptiest of maps with collectibles and explorables and tidbits and trivia here and there, which make the map, like exploring the map, actually attractive alternative to just having a 20-hour storyline. Yeah. Then I mean, what about you, Adrian? What do you like to play nowadays?
What I pretty much, for me nowadays, I venture within these 4 different genres of games. You have your action adventure games.
Yep.
Whether or not they have RPG related elements, it can be. I play RPG still. I play quite a bit of strategy games. Your Civilization series. Your fantastic games. There are those games where you can do a move, you save the game, and you can continue another day. Your XComs, where you can maybe go in for a mission, get all your guys killed, lament about it, delete the save file, and then maybe play again the next day. And then one thing I noticed as I grow older is I tend to like a bit more puzzle games nowadays. So
interesting.
Yeah, I don't exactly have a particular favorite. These are most of what I do play nowadays.
Well, I actually think I found a theme for you is that all of these games sound incredibly difficult.
Yes, so I have a weird machoistic streak to myself where I need a game to challenge me, as if life wasn't challenging enough already. But I need a game to challenge me in order to make me want to play it. Some of my favorite series are difficult games in and of itself. Dark Souls.
Yeah, I assume that Dark Souls would be.
Yeah, Dark Souls. I played the original Demon Souls on PS3 when one actually. So the game came out way early. Because it came out in the Japan and the Asian region.
Yeah.
And the Asian region actually contained English, was translated into English, so you got your English text and your subtitles and voice, which the original game actually have English voice already. I played it when no one else played it. I loved the shit out of it. Then it exploded when it was released in the West. Then that's when I had a head start from everyone else playing.
So basically, you were the sniper for everybody else.
In a way.
In Demon Souls and Dark Souls.
Yeah. I approached it first before everyone else ever thought that it was a good game.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that the inherent enjoyment from being challenged comes from what you do at the moment as well?
In a way, it's kind of I can play your Uncharted and they aren't exactly hard.
They are not, unless you play
them on the slightly less hardest difficulty, because the hardest difficulty is just
crushing.
It's crushing, yes.
The name of it is crushing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can enjoy those games as well. It goes probably because I'm an artist by trade and a game artist, a lighting artist at a studio. So daily I need to deal with a lot of technical or artistic issues that arises from production. So
the challenge more or less keeps you alive.
Yes, it keeps me alive. That's how I am passionate about my job, because of all the challenges. So if I were to be passionate about life itself, pretty much I have to play challenging games. I guess also due to the fact that older games are actually always gonna be challenging, because they don't try to pad you out with a lot of content. They actually pad you out by making the game,
As difficult as possible to waste as
I would
much time.
say, as difficult as possible to waste time, but challenging enough that you will want to make the effort to try to learn. So the process of learning, and then having that learning be broken because the next level tries to screw you up even harder. So
So it's basically get good scrub.
yeah, get good scrub. That's the get good mentality.
Sure. I mean, if you're playing that game that are challenging in the first place, do you think that they can be improved, or are there ways to improve them?
I
Like-
would say,
Like, I mean, in general, it doesn't have to be anything specific.
Mhm.
Like, for example, the deficiencies of the games we know might be selling points itself. Like, for example, Dark Souls is hard. It's difficult.
prepare to die. Their
Yeah,
tagline is prepare to die.
It's difficult, and the controls are obtuse in a way that it's supposed to be work in the favor of the game itself. It's the same for Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
Do you think is there anything in general that you'll change for these platforms that will make them better?
I would say I will always go back to this analogy of fighting games.
Yeah.
So fighting games is the utmost examples of games where they are challenging as hell, and it takes a lot in order to even step in to enjoy the game. So the Guilty Gear series, series done by Arc System Works,
Yeah.
they have excellent, very very excellent tutorials set up in order to teach new players of how the game system works, how your individual character works, and gives you a series of tests or tutorial missions in a sense, in order to slowly get you up to speed to how you should play your character, and some tips and tricks and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I think putting in effort into tutorials rather than just shoehorning in tutorials for the sake of, oh, we need something at the start, let's give them a tutorial so that they understand and hold their hand and stuff like that. You present a tutorial in the sense that I want to give the best to my new players, so I will also withhold a lot of the deeper things in, because those things can only be explored while you're playing, but you give them all the necessary tools for them to in order to play properly,
Interesting.
and then from there on the players can enjoy what they want.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So what about you in terms of open world?
I mean, for open world games, as to what can be improved, in general, most likely is always the controls. What open world does is that it mimics a way of life, how you are in real life as well. You're controlling a character, and you're controlling what they will do in the respect of what happens in their world. But there are always too many buttons here and there. I remember,
You would consider an open world game with too many buttons?
not say too many buttons, as in too many ways to interact here and there, as in things like this. I mean, Adrian would remember the times where I have actually screenshotted like certain like button schemes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, I
it
have.
happens in our group chats where I actually screenshotted and like, Adrian, what the hell is going on? There are like 16, 17 different combination of buttons, and that like more or less adds to the complexity of it, but it also adds to how janky the game system works itself. I think a game that does open world and like button schemes very very well is actually the Batman series.
The
And-
Arkham series.
Yeah, it dumbs it down in such a sense that combat is fluid, it's easy to learn, hard to master, okay? And there aren't that many things to like press here and there.
Yeah, you have a light attack and a heavy attack.
And like, I mean, as a counter,
Yeah, and
more
the
or less.
counter, which is the counter attack
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
And you have like a dodge. There isn't that much to interact with in a sense. Off the top of my head, let's go with Arkham City.
Yes, that's the second one in the series.
Yeah, let's go with Arkham City. Arkham City has like button scheme, for like exploration. It ties into combat as well. Okay, whereas let's say if you are talking about Watch Dogs 2, for example, okay, you have like driving, you have hacking, you have exploration, you have combat.
And all of those have entirely different.
Yeah, so
buttons.
for different things deployed, you have different buttons. As it's like, I was like, okay, this gets a lot getting used to. So having the ease of control would probably be the best way to put it, and it will probably be the best thing that that can be improved for open world games.
Yes.
And I mean, sometimes Adrian mentioned before, different worlds have different maps And sometimes maps are too big, sometimes maps are too,
Too
small.
I wouldn't consider them too small if they are.
If they are well
That-
populated,
It's kind of very subjective about the size or being too small or too big.
sure.
It needs to be comfortable in a way.
In a sense, yes. I always feel that like luxury controls are always a good thing. Like for example, one open world game like developed by Capcom, it's called Dragon's Dogma. I'm not sure about how it is now, but the initial build of it had no fast travel.
Oh yes.
So traveling across the map, let's say if you're going to take a mission, is actually 2 missions in and of itself. The first one being to travel the entire way there, which can be fun if you like exploring the world.
Or you like fighting shit along the way.
Yeah, but it gets tedious when you have to repeat it for every mission, every time, here and there. So I played the initial. Like I said, I don't know how it is now, but the initial build of it, the criticism was that there was no fast travel, and you don't realize how much of a luxury and how much of a privilege it is to have quick travel until it is
You-
actually quickly taken away from you.
It's not even an option in the game.
Yeah, and for Dragon's Dogma, the world isn't even that striking, isn't even that big or striking as compared to something like The Witcher. Like in Witcher, I seldom fast travel simply because everything looks so beautiful.
Yeah, you enjoy just exploring,
You
just riding your horse around.
Yeah, you enjoy everything about The Witcher simply because of the way that everything looks itself. There are different color schemes. The world feels very much alive. Whereas for Dragon's Dogma, I remember a lot of grey, a lot of brown, and
Pretty consistent. You have.
underground and overworld that like
Yeah,
rocky cliffs and things
It's
like
not
this.
colorful. It's definitely a world that's not very
It's very
colourful.
drab and it doesn't make you feel like traveling by foot. But you're kind of forced into traveling by
Doing
foot.
that because
yeah.
you don't have other choice.
Yeah, because you don't have another choice. You are going to slow travel in a sense all over the place. So I think that luxury of life options are always great. Can sometimes be improved. Like they shouldn't always be mandatory. It can be a reward. Like for example,
I would say, for fast travel alone,
yeah,
if you were to think about it this way, if you have your fast travel options in the game as a developer,
yeah,
you will also need to design your entire space around players having that option as well. You want to entice them to not use it as much. So in
which
that
is
sense,
how Witcher does it very well. So does Horizon. Horizon does it in such a way that you actually need to pay. Like you need the materials
yeah,
to
you
build
need to craft for
you-
that fast travel
for,
pack.
for fast travel packs or for eternal fast travel pack, so on and so forth. Okay, but the world is so beautiful that you don't have to. You actively don't want
You
to,
will only ever want to fast travel if you need to backtrack.
or if you need to jump to a story element that you know that hey, okay, I want to
I
do
want
this.
to get through this portion.
Yeah,
first.
as soon as possible. It's like there are things like that require, not say require, but they more or less they encourage you to use fast travel. Like you want to skip like this beat of the story. It's like this is very exciting, and I want to get to the next part as soon as possible.
Yeah, fast travel.
Fast travel. Yeah, I mean, if it's on the other side of the map, I don't want to have to travel the entire
Yeah.
part of the map just to continue the story.
And especially when especially because of open world games, sometimes if they want to put in tension points in the story,
yeah,
having a big gap in between feels odd, brings you out of the story. You
Yeah.
lose a lot of contextual sense in the story and stuff like that.
yeah,
So
yeah. So I mean, there's always things that
quality of life improvements.
yeah, quality of life improvements, and I think that that should be an option. That, like you said, should be an option that must be thought about when being implemented into
Yes.
the game itself by the developers. Okay, and I mean, to round off the entire show this week, okay, we are gonna talk about games that we can't play, as in games genres of
Yeah, specifically genres that we can't exactly play.
that doesn't gel with us at
Yeah.
all. I mean, nothing wrong with them. Some of these are fantastic,
Popular genres that a lot of people will play.
or these are games. There are some games in these genres that we ourselves enjoy and play, but as a whole, we just cannot get into. Okay.
For me, I guess it's only one genre in particular: sports games.
Is it?
Yes. So if I were to play a sports games, I'd rather play the sport itself. That's always my argument when someone asks me, why don't you play sports games? Why don't you play FIFA? Why don't you play NBA? I'm like, let's go grab our sportswear, grab our boots, let's go down and kick some soccer or just play some basketball. I'd rather do that than actually sit down on the couch to play a game about sports.
Sure. I mean, I understand. That's a fair assessment of it. It doesn't help that every year sports games have a new iteration.
They sell a lot.
There's always a new iteration, and they're always full price, and there are always minor improvements over the previous year.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that's the case for most sports games.
And there wouldn't be any much innovation in terms of gameplay, because sports is sports. You need to emulate how it's played. You can't go far beyond from that.
Yeah, I guess in a sense that we are mimicking a group of people that have been asking about why don't you just patch the games and just pay a fee every year, like a subscription, like an MMO. We'll just pay $30 every year. You update.
Yeah, bring in new models, have the reshuffle of your Premier League teams and stuff like that.
Yeah, and things like this. But I understand why you feel that way about sports games.
What about you?
For myself, FPS games. It's a very controversial, in a sense, to say that FPS games are very popular and they are very enjoyable, but in the same way you can say that they are very derivative as well.
Yes, there's nothing much to them.
Yeah, most of the time there's nothing much that you can do about FPSs. What you do, you just go in, you shoot people, and that's more or less about it.
How do we find ways to make you shoot?
Yeah, added to the fact that, I mean, we've been through this before. I mean, if you've played one, you've played them all. In terms of mechanics, in a sense, there are games that innovate very well. Like, for example, Overwatch. Generally, I don't enjoy playing against other people for long periods of time. But Overwatch is one of those games where I have actually sat down to play like 4 or 5 hours against a group of people, like different groups of people, because they do FPS mechanics very, very well. Every character feels fresh, every character feels different. It helps that they've put in like a skill system as well.
Yeah, it is a hero shooter. It is kind of the next step of how you would want to do a
FPS,
a multiplayer FPS, by merging it with Dota.
Yeah,
in a way.
In a sense, I guess. Like, I mean, there are other ones that I can talk about, but in general, they are still quite like derivative of the same formula itself. Like, for example, I can say I enjoyed Wolfenstein. Like New Colossus for Wolfenstein, last year was in my top 10 best games that were made last year. The problem is it's still the same thing. It's a very nice as an action set piece. It's
still run and gun.
It's still a run and gun. Okay, it's very enjoyable. Nothing wrong about that. But at the end of the day, you still need to go at a pace where the action supplants the story.
Yes.
There are portions of the game where everything slows down, and you don't want them to, but you have no choice, and the game feels odd at this point in time. And because you're looking from a first-person point of view, everything feels order in a sense. You don't get the overall view. You're more or less
your tunnel vision.
Your tunnel vision to see what's in front of you, what's beside you at most, and not the world around you. And in a sense, because of that, right, you want everything to be action set piece for it to feel fresh. If it doesn't go in that manner,
it needs to string you along with set piece after set piece after set piece for you to get through to the whole story.
Yeah, but the criticism for that can also be said that if it's just set pieces, the game isn't very, very interesting as well.
Yeah, there's nothing much to it. If it's just, you could pretty much watch a movie.
Yeah.
At the same amount of price.
And I think at this point in time, a lot of us are very sick of FPSs as well. I mean, I've been more sick of them. There's been a proliferation of FPSs.
I'm not that hostile to FPS games.
Not to say I'm hostile, but like I said, every one of them, even while enjoyable, still feels the same. Yeah.
For me, I don't mind playing first-person games. So games like your immersive sims
That's fair.
are still within my palette of enjoyment.
So
Maybe
things like
shooters are not that much because I don't really see any challenge in shooting people anymore.
that's fair.
Yeah, so well maybe unless I play competitively, but playing competitive is another whole other ball game.
That's fair.
Yeah, so
To round it off is that for myself is that FPSs, it's you make something interesting, I'll still play it, I'll still enjoy it.
That's
It
about
might it might not be my cup of tea, but I'll
Mhm.
still try it
Mhm.
before I tell you that it's not my cup of tea.
I see.
Yeah. Whereas like
I wouldn't even touch any
Sports
sports games with a 10-inch pole. So that's me. That's me.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, about games that we don't play, I guess I have to give a special shout out
Mm-hmm.
to a certain genre of game that has gotten popular again.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that fighting games is on my love hate list.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because of the fact that we have jobs now, we have lives now.
Yeah,
we can't dedicate
hours to train our characters.
hours to farming frame data.
Mhm.
We can't learn moves lists for like 20 characters anymore. We don't have time for that.
Yeah.
So it's a love hate. We can get into it, we do enjoy it, but we just can't play it that much anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. And that more or less wraps up our show this week. Okay. We'll probably be back in 2 weeks' time as I head to Tokyo.
And I'll still be in Singapore. Maybe we might have an interim episode with maybe other guests. Who knows?
Yeah, other party members. As in, so far it's only been Adrian and I, but the collective, and we will be
There
definitely
are a
be
bunch of us who really have different things to talk about.
sure. So until then, play more games.
Peace.